This video is proudly brought to you by Food Bev International Consulting. More on them later.
Right, so now I'm going to introduce our last panelists. So we're coming all the way back home. We've traveled right around Africa. Now we are back to South Africa. So our next presenter is 𝐿𝐿𝐜𝐜. 𝐿𝐿𝐜𝐜 is, sorry, I'm just trying to move these things out of my way. 𝐿𝐿𝐜𝐜 is a Health Professions Council of South Africa registered Senior Environmental Health Practitioner, EHP, and has worked for the City of Johannesburg and the City of Ekurhuleni Environmental Health Department for over 10 years. And 𝐿𝐿𝐜𝐜 was also part of the National Listeriosis team that was responsible for training over 500 EHPs nationally on listeriosis management after we had that listeria outbreak. So he was also part of the outbreak investigations, the Foodstuffs, Cosmetics, and Disinfectants Act, and other related standards. Okay. He's also experienced in performing food safety and hygiene audits. He is well versed in auditing of retail, catering, and diverse food establishments based on regulations. So our food safety regulations here in South Africa, he's well versed with them and any associated standards. So food safety is like that he's very experienced in. So he has other business interests, which include being a food and occupational health and safety specialist, consultant for 𝐼nviro_switch and for Food Bev. So we've worked with 𝐿𝐿𝐜𝐜 on countless projects. So we can say that he is a very close partner to Food Bev. And in other interests, he's the director of 𝐼nviro_switch Cares Foundation, an NPO, a nonprofit organization focusing on giving back to communities through various philanthropic initiatives in partnership with itstartswithyou Private Limited, for which he's a sole director. So if you want to learn more about this, you can actually follow him on LinkedIn and his social pages, where he actually focuses on all of this. So without further ado, over to you, 𝐿𝐿𝐜𝐜.
Thank you very much, Nozipho. This is a great opportunity for me, and I'm looking forward to a great session with everyone. So essentially, I'm almost summing up everything that everybody has said, because Gladys spoke to how it's everybody's responsibility when it regards, or as it regards, food safety. Sam spoke about the importance of food safety in ensuring food security. So there is no food security without the foundation, the prerequisite, which is food safety. And Joan also highlighted how the standards are also so very important and so critical in ensuring that everybody actually benefits, not only from the consumer's point of view, as she discussed the misconceptions, but also from the producer's point of view. So I'm looking forward to just sharing how everyone is actually a risk manager. And I'll premise it by saying this basic phenomenon. Has anyone, you can indicate in the chat, has anyone ever not experienced any food poisoning in their lifetime? Not experienced diarrhea, stomach cramps, nausea, vomiting at any point in their lifetime? If that is the case, kindly indicate it in the chat, because you are clearly the exception. You are not the rule. Everybody else, myself included, we are the rule. If you are the one who doesn't or has never experienced such, then you are definitely the exception. So I'm looking forward to hearing how many exceptions there are from the 43 people that are basically joining us. And we are happy to have everyone here, and I'm hoping that the spectrum or demographic of everyone here is actually wide, from people who are laymen to people who are professionals in the industries and actually are contributing to the knowledge that we are using in food forums and in food safety conferences, and in this specific workshop that we're actually having today, commemorating World Food Safety Day. So essentially, the reason we have this farm to fork image here on the screen is because everyone, whether you are a consumer, where you are at the end of this particular food chain, or whether you are at the agricultural production phase, or the manufacturing phase, or the processing phase, or you are a restaurateur or in the retail business, everyone is responsible for food safety, and thus everyone is then responsible for managing risk. And I made that example earlier on because I'm just hoping to give that perspective to you as to why you are a food safety risk manager yourself, because you wouldn't want to experience the symptoms of food poisoning or any other food related illness. Gladys, I think, alluded to over 200 food safety illnesses that actually exist, and we wouldn't want to experience those. And thus, we have to play our role as food safety managers throughout that particular spectrum, because the farm to fork initiatives, they promote traceability and transparency within organizations. They help us understand food safety, food behavior, the safety culture that even Joan alluded to. They help us in ensuring food security as it pertains to also ending poverty or achieving zero poverty, as it alludes to the Sustainable Development Goal 2, as mentioned by Sam as well. So I'll keep alluding to them as I'm summing up, as I've already mentioned. So essentially, it also focuses on promoting local and regional production, local and regional use of food, transportation, handling of food, and therefore keeping food safe for everyone. So me and you are all part of this farm to fork process at the end of the day. So essentially, okay, there's something in my screen that's causing me to not see everything properly. So essentially, when we speak about risk management, we also have to allude to some of the other food safety concepts that we actually need to be familiar with, because risk management is not an isolated matter in and of itself. It's linked to risk analysis, which is made up of risk management, risk communication, and risk assessments. So in the risk assessments, we look at food safety probability of hazards actually happening along this particular food chain, no matter where you are on that food chain. Then in risk management, we look at basically coming up with ways and methods of managing those probabilities intrinsically, but managing also throughout the spectrum of the food chain. And then we communicate those particular risks wherever we are in our workplace, or whether we are at home and at a basic level of handling food at the end of the day. And sometimes these components are actually separated and are done separately. However, when there is a food safety management, however, when there is a food safety incident that actually happens, then the risk assessment and risk management aspects have to happen simultaneously, so that you cover the high impacts of the incident, just like it was alluded to that I was part of the listeriosis outbreak management team that happened in South Africa in 2018. So we had to be risk assessors, we had to be risk managers, and we had to communicate the risk to the nation so as to not exacerbate the outbreak, and so that it doesn't turn into a pandemic, because we've all now lived through the process of pandemics. So the food safety risk manager or risk management process, it starts with identifying the human health risks related to the intake of food safety hazards via food. So food is the vehicle, the medium that is used to transport the hazard, or basically used to contaminate the rest of the population that is in contact with them. And therefore, it allows us to then decide on a scientific risk assessment that we can use to come to a solution that can be communicated accordingly. Thank you to Foodbev International Consulting for sponsoring this video. If you are in any food-related industry or business, then they are the guys for you. They will assist you as far as food safety-related training and compliance is concerned. And if you are into exporting of related foodstuffs, then they will assist you in preparing you for accreditation purposes. You can reach them based on the details that are on your screen right now, and they will get to you as promptly and as soon as possible. Thank you once again to Foodbev International Consulting for sponsoring this video. But what is important is that we also recognize what science says, what research articles say, and what people within this particular field, expert or not, actually say about it. Because the first point is that you don't necessarily have to be an expert to know that food safety affects everyone. Again, I emphasize that that is a point that Gladys also raised earlier on. Food safety is a shared responsibility. So it doesn't matter where you are, you play a pivotal role in accordance with that particular rule. Then it's important because personal health and well-being is key to people sustaining their lives. So we have to avoid illnesses and we have to avoid severe consequences that don't, or that basically inhibit individuals' health and well-being going to another level of optimism. So we have to be aware and manage food risks so that everyone can be protected, including your loved ones as an individual. Consumer responsibility. It is everybody's responsibility. So as consumers, we have the responsibility to make informed choices about the food that we consume, and therefore we undertake to make food risk empowerment aspects that actually select safe and reliable products and hold the other side of the spectrum now, the food providers, accountable for the practices that they have, because at the end of the day it has consequences not only for the business, as Joanne had said, but also for the consumers as well. There's the economic impact. Businesses close down as a result of not following food safety practices. Regulatory compliance that happens that is there to ensure that people benefit from the economic outbursts that actually grow economies within the various regions, sectors, and countries. No one basically goes without eating, and therefore the economy can't benefit if people don't eat. So that's why food in and of itself has a positive economic impact. But without the food being safe, then it's the reverse. It's a negative economic impact that actually happens. Of course, number 5, it's important for protecting vulnerable populations, because some populations are susceptible to certain things. Foodborne illnesses, they're susceptible to allergies that aren't managed, or allergens that aren't managed properly where production takes place, and therefore the impact of those allergens on those particular people will have dire consequences. There are people with weakened immune systems. We're talking about the young, the old, the elderly. We're talking about the immunocompromised in this particular case. So as a risk manager, you have to do your part to protect these individuals. And of course, environmental sustainability. Food risks are not limited to human health. They also have an impact on the environment. We're talking issues such as contamination, food waste, and unsustainable farming practices that can harm ecosystems. So by managing food risks, individuals can contribute to a more sustainable and environmentally friendly food system. And then in terms of the professional development element that actually happens, food safety as a sector, or food control as a sector, has vast professionals that are already existing in the ecosystem of knowledge that exists. And because of that, then there's professional development, career opportunities, and that spreads the awareness around the elements of food safety. So as a risk manager, we have to empower ourselves, and this particular workshop plays that key in empowering us, or just highlighting the key aspects that we may already know, but bring them to the fore so that we can engage, deliberate, and have robust discussions around them. That leads to then the social responsibility, because the more knowledge that we already have and have developed and have grown in our various careers, then we have to be socially responsible and ensure that safe and nutritious food is there for everyone. It is a social responsibility for everyone. So by actively managing food risks, individuals can contribute to creating a safe society where access to food is safe and serves as a basic right for those individuals. Remember the element that I spoke to of regulatory compliance. Many countries have to have these food safety regulations, and Joyce earlier on also alluded to issues of standards not being standardized within the international market. And of course, Gladys and Dr. Charles also discussed the various viewpoints around that particular point and how we can't run away from the international basis for legislation actually existing, for standards and core guidelines actually existing, so that we benchmark against what's good and break away from what's actually negative at the end of the day, because we live in a global village. And thus, as a risk manager, we have to play a positive role where food safety becomes a global concern, so that there's a global positive impact that is sustainable and promotes good practices at the end of the day. So just the general framework as a risk manager of some of the things that we need to look at. We need to look at managing certain activities. In other words, in our scope of work or in living day to day, because as we said, it's a wide spectrum from a layman to an expert in the food field. We all have to play our roles in food safety management. And thus, a food safety risk manager would have to identify food safety issues. They'd have to develop multi-factor risk profiles within their establishments, and then they'd have to have necessary goals that they have to fulfill, such as commissioning risk assessments and also ranking and rating those particular risks in accordance to their priorities. Then they have to identify and select risk management options. They have to identify them, evaluate those options, and select preferred options based on balanced consideration of all factors. Then the implementation. Charles said that it's not what you say, it's not what you see, but rather what you do that matters. So implementation is where it counts the most. So we have to validate the risk management measures where necessary. We have to verify them, we have to correct them, and implement those that have been corrected. And of course, the key aspect there is that we have to monitor and review so that the cycle can begin all over again. It's a continuous system, and that's why even issues of accreditation for international standards that organizations apply, they have to happen on an annual basis or a biannual basis accordingly. So food safety risk management starts with identifying the human risk related to the intake of the food safety hazards via food, again, and deciding that a scientific risk assessment will then have to be done. So what is our responsibilities as key? As we've seen this framework now, what are the key responsibilities that we as risk managers have that will basically push this agenda of food safety forward? The key thing that we need to do is identify and select the best management options based on the risk analysis results that we get, and also considering certain aspects such as socio-economic aspects. So economic issues, consumer acceptability, anxiety and expectations, political sensitivity, media pressure, and international consistency. Again, Joyce, I hope you're listening. This point of international consistency and uniformity is key. So during an incident or a crisis, under great time pressure, risk analysis and risk management often take place simultaneously once again, and this is where informed decisions that are transparent and open and new developments come place. We identify data gaps and uncertainties and indeed act to appropriately meet those particular conclusions that are drawn, and then we modify them from time to time based on our evaluation and monitoring as time goes. So I'd have to reiterate the same points that I made earlier on. Everyone is responsible for issues of food safety. Everyone is a risk manager. Everyone has to play their role despite where they are on the food safety management framework, despite where they are as it relates to the food chain, because we need to treat food safety with sensitivity. We need to treat it as a priority so that individuals actually are aware of food safety aspects, implement the right food safety practices, adopt proper food safety cultures and behaviors, and lead the way forward in as far as food safety being put on the map is actually concerned. So these are the references based on the data sets that I've presented here, and then I thank you for the opportunity once again.
Thank you so much, Lesego. I thought you were going to go on.
No, I thought I should make it quick to cover some of the time lost, as some of the questions that we need to cover are pivotal and people must leave here with as much value as possible.
Okay, no, thank you so much, Lesego, for that presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, the time now is 12:15, so about 15 minutes to officially cover any questions. And then beyond that, if there's anyone who'd like to stay behind and discuss or have any further questions. But I don't know about our speakers, how long they can stay behind beyond 12:30. Maybe let me hear.
Yeah, I would suggest we just keep going. Nozi, let's see how the 15 minutes is gonna go. I know there's been quite a few comments on the chats. Maybe let's go to the chats now, and also we can have some hands up for anyone who wants to contribute. Let's just have this very, very interactive. Let's be very interactive on this one. This is now your time, colleagues. We have set the show. Lesego has told us that we are all risk managers, or we must be risk managers if we're going to end or improve our food safety standards. So, Nozi, you can go to the chat, I suppose, and we can kickstart it.
I'd actually captured the questions on Word so that I don't lose them. Let's just.
Oh, perfect. You can share that. So maybe let's just have the hands up that are up. Wezi, you can start. You can unmute Wezi, and then I'll come to Joyce, and then yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Wezi.
Afternoon. Thank you for the presentations. Quite a bit of learning on my part. Just a question. How, as a lay person, say I'm getting food from a store, what should I look for to be able to know that this food is compliant with the required standards?
Okay, great stuff. Great question there. Maybe who on the panelists, because this is now questions to the panelists. Who's going to take that? Gladys, Joe, Lesego, Sam.
Sure, I can come in, Doc. Like we had mentioned, for consumers, really, the food label is what talks to you at that point of purchase. So you want to see, are there any certification labels? For example, what we have currently in Zambia for water, you'll find that most of our water companies get certified by ZAP. So at least there you are able to know that that company was checked. So the food label really talks to you at that point. Also, what you know about the company, you know how companies like carry their brands, also talks to you. But really, most importantly, I think it's the food label, what the company has put out there. Are they certified? That should give you some assurance. Also, we have, and I think maybe Mr. �W𝐿𝐬𝐜 will come in, we have some products that are under compulsory schemes that are mandatory for them to be checked, you know, like peanut butter, your fruit juices, I can't think of Millie Meal, you know, so those are checked on a regular basis. So you're assured that if it's on the market, then they have been checked and they have a permit to supply. That's for the Zambian case, I should say.
Okay, Doc, I'd like to add something. I totally agree with Gladys. I would just like to add the components that as a consumer, the most basic level thing is to use all of your senses. So to observe and see whether there's anything wrong with the product at hand. So if it looks good, then the next component would be to look at the elements of labeling. Now with labeling, the most important aspect would be the date marking aspect. So is it past its expiry date or use by date? Is it within its sell date framework, or is there something in between? You need to basically, as a consumer, also understand the difference in these particular date marking components. And then number 3, Gladys highlighted the issue of accreditation, but in terms of the product. But you can also go as far as looking at accreditation insofar as it pertains to the premises or the business itself. What type of certifications are on the wall? Are they from regulatory bodies? Is it just standards? Is it internal audit systems that have been put in place? And how, in your observations of the premises itself, is the general hygiene practices there? How are staff basically carrying out themselves? How is the operation basically working and the system at hand? So just to add to Gladys's point, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't trust it, don't get it. I have this rule that I only buy from certain, certain brands because of what I know about those companies. And for me, I hardly like to, try out anything if I don't know much about that company, as you said, Joy. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Gladys. Very, very important. Actually, that's why we need, if we're business people, I know there are quite a number of SME business business people here. So you can see that you need to produce a credible product. Otherwise, Gladys is not going to buy. She has just told